him in various crimes, including fraud and even having an underage bride. After
What?
Ali was literally
What,
arrested
nigga?
for trying to create a fake passport, the FBI and New York Police Department were able to turn him into a confidential informant against the...
This nigga had an underage bride, nigga? Nobody brought that. I don't remember Conor bringing that up, because that's probably just like too icky for him to even want to say out loud, but damn. I mean, fuck all that terrorist shit, nigga. That's the most damning piece of it all for me, personally. That's crazy. What's the beef with Khabib and his taxes?
In the world of MMA, controversies are as common as championship belts. And a figure who seemingly has as many belts as he does controversies is none other than Khabib Nurmagomedov, former UFC lightweight champion of the world. Khabib has recently found himself at the center of some high-profile conspiracies and scandals. As of late, Khabib has faced allegations of not only sizable tax embezzlement, but also numerous suspicious ties to known criminals. In this video, I'll try to give an unbiased account.
Basically, everything that Conor said was true, is what that sounds like. That's everything Conor said in the fucking press conference leading up to their fight.
Of how Khabib Nurmagomedov, a man who likes to present himself as an honest and principled person, might not be the bastion of integrity people think him to be. First and foremost, as we speak, Khabib finds himself in the midst of a bizarre tax embezzlement scandal between himself and the Russian government. Khabib's tax inconsistencies came to light in May of 2024 when it was reported by MASH, an online Russian newspaper, that Khabib owed over $3 million USD to the Russian government. According to the Russian Federal Tax Services, Khabib was accused of inconsistent filings of revenue from several of his businesses, including his MMA promotion Eagle FC. As a result of these supposed debts, the Russian
I'm imagining that's what happened to Eagle FC. We're like, why is there no more Eagle FC fights? And it's because this guy has shady business practices. Interesting.
government froze the bank accounts of all of Khabib's businesses and charities. This was already a bizarre turn of events that I myself certainly didn't see coming, yet the story took another strange twist when just 2 weeks later, Khabib was able to obtain new citizenship under the UAE. Things can
Fuck, I didn't know that. Conor said he was said he was kicked out of his country. I thought he was just joking. He's now a citizen of the UAE? Interesting.
Continued to spiral from bad to worse.
Which is exactly the same thing that Khamzat Chimaev had to do. Because of his ties with criminal connection. Oh my God.
For Khabib, when on July 1st, 2024, the Russian government then froze Khabib's personal bank accounts,
Interesting.
leaving him without any access to any of his funds and assets. And to cap all of this off, the very next day, it was reported
He flees Russia. Whoa.
Khabib Nurmagomedov, UFC champion and local hero of Dagestan, fled the country.
I didn't see that at all. Whoa.
As you probably suspect, I find this entire saga
That's
incredibly
crazy.
strange, and admittedly, just from knowing the facts of the situation, this really does paint Khabib in a pretty terrible light.
Yeah. This is, oh my God. He fled Russia. He fled the country. And he's, for tax embezzlement, he owes the Russian government $3 million American dollars. 302 rubles, 302 million rubles. And now he fled the country. I didn't see any of this. How do I not see these reports? Y'all doing a good job of suppressing this. This didn't pop up on my Bleach report. That's crazy.
Being $3 million in debt to his government for presumably lying on his taxes isn't something that a man of honor and principles should do. Not only that, Khabib literally fleeing his home country when he felt the walls starting to close in on him makes him look pretty damn guilty. Because prior to Khabib fleeing the country, Khabib could have claimed that he was an innocent man and maybe there had been some sort of mistake, that these were all false charges.
But you ran.
The moment Khabib fled to the UAE to
Fast forward, he has since abandoned, betrayed, and fled Russia entirely, leaving his children and mother and wife, cousin, wife/cousin behind. I wonder if that is his cousin. Conor hasn't missed. Conor has not missed. He was right about Ali. All right. I find out Ali got arrested on 9/11 with like 5 different passports. and then turned snitch and testified against like a terrorist cell, against his terrorist organization. He was saying that he was a terrorist rat, and then you look into it and it's like, holy shit, he got arrested on 9/11 and then snitched on all his other co-conspirators. Kind of was right. And then he said all this shit about Khabib, and it was all right. It was all right. Maybe, oh my God.
To avoid the jurisdiction of the Russian government, it really does make him look like the guilty party in all of this, at least in the eyes of the public. I'd also like to point out that I'm really surprised that Khabib either cannot or simply refuses to pay the $3 million to the government. Like, throughout his UFC career alone, he earned at least $23 million, and that's not taking into account pay-per-view
endorsements, pay-per-view points, all that.
Let's not forget the fact that Khabib vs. Conor is still the highest selling pay-per-view in UFC history to this day, and seeing as Khabib walked into that fight as champion, then yeah, I would imagine that he made way more than his disclosed earnings of $23 million. Not only that, Dana White himself said that after Khabib defeated Conor, Putin gifted
$20
million in Russian real estate. So it's like, if Khabib is sitting on $20 million in real estate, can't he just give some of that back?
Yeah,
pay off his
I don't understand this at all.
I just find it really hard to believe that Khabib doesn't have the means to pay off his tax debts. Of course, $3 million to people like you and me is an astronomical amount of money, but to someone like Khabib, who had an extremely successful UFC career, was gifted property and land from Putin, and owns several different companies, I just can't wrap my head around the idea that Khabib doesn't have the resources to make it right with his government. Not to mention, Khabib has so many ties to both Russian and Middle Eastern oligarchs who I would imagine would all be happy to help out their pal Khabib.
This doesn't make any sense.
That I can see Khabib being so prideful where even if he is truly in the wrong in this situation, he wouldn't allow himself to pay back the money, as that would be him admitting that he's guilty. And for a man like Khabib, admitting that he's been lying on his taxes might be too shameful for his
But you have been lying on your taxes.
Maybe, at least in Khabib's mind, fleeing his home country is more honorable than admitting that he knowingly committed fraud. Again though, this is a
What are you talking about? That's crazy.
Khabib currently finds himself in, and admittedly, I'm not totally sure what my take on all of this.
Just keep the shame going.
You guys decide what you think about all of this. Now, with Khabib's alleged tax fraud out of the way, let's turn our attention over to Khabib's numerous ties with both suspected and confirmed criminals. The most obvious example is manager Ali Abdelaziz. Ali is a significant figure in the MMA community, managing well-known fighters from Cody Garbrandt to Fabricio Verdum to Islam Makhachev. However, Ali's life has been fraught with controversy and criminal activity. Ali has committed various crimes across the United States, primarily in Colorado. Ali also has ties to the terrorism-linked group Muslims of America, who he himself claims engage in criminal activities. More information has emerged about his connections to the Muslims of America, implicating him in various crimes, including fraud and even having an underage bride. After Ali was literally arrested for trying to create a fake passport, the FBI and New York Police Department were able to turn him into a confidential informant against the—
This nigga had an underage bride, nigga? Nobody brought that. I don't remember Conor bringing that up, because that's probably just like too icky for him to even want to say out loud, but damn. I mean, fuck all that terrorist shit, nigga. That's the most damning piece of it all for me, personally. That's crazy.
The Muslims of America. However, and I can barely even believe this, the FBI ultimately cut ties with Ali as a confidential informant after it became clear that he was operating as a double agent against them. And somehow, despite Ali being a threat to national security, he's been allowed to stay in the country and has since become one of the most successful managers in the entire sport of MMA. Though it really is no secret that Ali has an extremely dubious past, as Conor McGregor famously dubbed Ali as a quote snitch terrorist rat in the build-up to his fight with Khabib. And look, to be fair to both Ali and Khabib, it does seem that at least nowadays, Ali is on the straight and narrow. And even though he definitely has a very checkered past and has been arrested for some really shady crimes, there's been no reason to think that he's up to any criminal wrongdoings, at least in this day and age. And as much as I don't really care for Ali as a figure in MMA, to his credit, it seems like he has left his life of crime behind him. However, the next three men we talk about not only have a affiliations with Khabib, but all have been linked to some pretty despicable crimes. The first example is that of Gaji Murad Tagirov, a 2-0 Dagestani Muslim MMA fighter who trained at Eagles MMA, the gym that Khabib owns and operates. On June 23, 2024, Tagirov and several other men opened fire on Christian and Jewish houses in Dagestan. During this disgusting attack, 15 police officers and at least 4 civilians were killed. During the fighting, Tagirov was slain by law enforcement, and upon being identified, it came to light that Tagirov had ties back to Eagles MMA, which naturally raised eyebrows.
Is that why they got raided? Oh my god.
Tagirov's relationship with Eagles MMA resulted in Russian special forces raiding Khabib's days after the attack, with videos surfacing of officers storming the premises. In response to the controversy, Khabib issued a statement to defuse the situation, asserting, quote, "It is wrong to call him a pupil of Khabib Nurmagomedov's school." He claimed that Gaji Murad and his brother only trained at the gym for a short period of time and were not regular members. And Khabib, to his credit, vehemently denounced this act of terrorism, stating that having a difference in religion does not justify violence. And oh man, this is obviously a really fucked up situation. Like, what these maniacs did is really disgusting, and frankly, I'm glad they're no longer breathing the same air as us. And to be fair to Khabib, he did the proper thing in outright denouncing the attack and making it clear to the world that Tagirov was supposedly never a true member of his gym. But look, I'd love to be able to say to you that this is the only case of Khabib having some sort of ties to religious extremism. I'd love to be able to give Khabib the benefit of the doubt here, but to be honest, this incident is just the most recent case of Khabib having relationships with possible radicalists. Let's talk now about Khabib's ties to an athlete who was renowned in the late 90s and early 2000s for his incredible wrestling skills, but who later was accused of financing terrorism in 2015. And after this man became a suspect in several different attempted murders on Russian soil, he fled to the UAE, where he is now wanted by the Russian government. Does that last part sound a little familiar to you?
That's crazy.
Murtazaliev, also born in Dagestan, had a stellar wrestling career that peaked with winning Olympic gold in the year 2000. After Sagid's athletic career ended, he pursued a life in the Dagestani government, where he eventually became the head of the Dagestani Pension Fund, which from what I understand is a pretty prestigious position. However, Sagid's honorable government job would be tainted when it came to light that Sagid was, quote, promoting terrorist activities through his government position. Specifically, he was accused of financing terrorism while being a high-ranking government employee. Sagid was also accused of organizing and attempting the assassination of the head of the Center to Combat Extremism, as well as the attempted murder of the deputy head of administration of Kaizylar, which is a town in Russia. Like, can you guys believe this? Sagid Murtazaliev literally tried to have the head of anti-terrorism in Dagestan murdered. However, when authorities went to arrest Sagid, it became clear that he fled the country and to this day is said to be hiding in the UAE. In 2018, however, a very surprising photo was posted online that shows Khabib and Sagid taking a picture together where they look pretty buddy-buddy with one another. And you might be saying that Khabib obviously looked up to Sagid as a wrestler when Khabib was growing up, which I'm sure is true and I can respect that, but at the same time, Sagid Murtazaliev not only leveraged his government position to literally finance acts of terrorism, but he also attempted to assassinate 2 other government officials. Sagid is clearly a pretty terrible person, and the fact that Khabib is posing in photo ops with this guy is a bit odd to me. Like, there's no way that Khabib was not familiar with the allegations against Sagid, and that only leads me to wonder if Khabib simply doesn't care that Sagid is a wanted fugitive for enabling terrorism and attempted murder. And if this is true, if Khabib is knowingly indifferent to the numerous allegations surrounding Sagid, it really makes me question Khabib's true principles and values. Aside from Khabib's relationships with known terrorists or those with terrorist ties, Khabib also is connected to Ziauddin Magomedov, a Russian oligarch who faced fraud charges from the Russian government for embezzling large amounts of money. Again, does this not sound a little familiar? At the height of his success, Ziauddin amassed a $4 billion fortune through various investments, starting with the shady bank that eventually lost its banking license. He then moved into oil investments, creating high-profile connections with many major sports organizations. Through these connections, he became a significant figure in the world of Russian MMA.
Yeah, see?
He was a major funder of Khabib's team and gym Eagles MMA, and without Ziavutin's support, the Nurmagomedov family might not have achieved the success they've had. Ziavutin funded the Nurmagomedov family's lifestyle, surgeries, and even gifted them cars, allowing Khabib and his family to focus solely on their rise in the MMA world. However, despite his strong ties to the Russian government, Ziavutin was arrested by officials for a massive embezzlement case involving $39 million from the construction of the World Cup Stadium in Kaliningrad, Russia. After learning of his arrest, Khabib petitioned Putin to have Ziavutin released from police custody, but to no avail. Ziavutin was later sentenced to 19 years in prison, where he currently resides. Now, when it comes to Khabib's relationship with Ziavutin, I think the parallels between what Ziavutin was arrested and imprisoned for obviously have many parallels to Khabib's tax embezzlement scandal. Let's not forget here that Ziavutin played a massive role in jumpstarting the career of Khabib by funding Khabib's living and training expenses. Ziavutin literally bankrolled the creation of Khabib's gym Eagles MMA. This guy was not just a business partner of Khabib, but he was a close family friend as well. And the fact that this guy, who had such an integral part of creating the legacy that is Khabib Nurmagomedov, is later imprisoned for defrauding $39 million is a bit of a red flag to me. Then, when we look at Khabib's current tax embezzlement scandal that's caused him to flee the country, I can't help but wonder if Ziavutin quite literally showed Khabib the ropes on how to commit such large-scale tax fraud. It's like, do I really think that it's a complete coincidence that Khabib is facing embezzlement charges that are eerily similar to the charges that his close friend Ziavutin was imprisoned for? I mean, hey, if it is truly a coincidence, then it's a really strange one. But honestly, I am inclined to believe that the Khabib and Ziavutin embezzlement cases are not completely unrelated incidents to one another. Of course, there's no way of proving this, but I really can't shake the feeling that Ziavutin gave Khabib first-hand lessons on how to commit tax fraud, and he put those teachings to work. Again, though, this is just a theory, but I feel like the breadcrumbs are really starting to add up here. Anyways, these are all the things that I wanted to talk about in this video. I could also mention how Khabib has ties back to Ramzan Kadyrov, the Chechen dictator known for various human rights offenses. But the thing is, many UFC fighters at this point have become pretty buddy with Kadyrov, like Kamaru Usman and Justin Gaethje. So even though it's weird as fuck to me that these fighters want to be homies with a Chechen warlord, there's nothing that's indicated that their friendship with Kadyrov has any shadiness behind it. I could also mention how Khabib was accused by CoffeeZilla of being a part of an NFT scam in 2023.
Oh, wow.
Despite the initial accusation from CoffeeZilla, he never provided any form of evidence to back up his claims, and he never made a video addressing it. Obviously, with a video of this type of nature, I wanted to keep things pretty strictly to the facts. But honestly, even if we're just looking at the facts surrounding Khabib's tax fraud charges and his relationship with both suspected and confirmed terrorists, I feel like it definitely warrants questioning Khabib's character and moralities, at least a little bit. Khabib's recent tax issues draw major parallels to Ziavutin Magomedov, who was imprisoned for committing large-scale tax embezzlement. Furthermore, not only did Khabib have a confirmed terrorist training at his gym in Gajimurad Kadyrov, but Khabib also seems to have a friendly relationship with Sagid Murtazaliev, who has played a major role in not only funding terrorism, but leveraged his government role in an attempt to government officials who were fighting against terrorism. And I know that you might be saying that Khabib denounced the actions of Gajimurad Kadyrov after the recent terrorist attacks in Dagestan, which is all well and good. However, I can't seem to find Khabib making any statements denouncing the actions of Sagid Murtazaliev, who has likely done more to further terrorist efforts than Gajimurad Kadyrov ever did. And look, I want to make my point very, very clear here. I am not saying that Khabib himself is a terrorist or is enabling terrorism in any way, shape, or form. However, what I am saying is that Khabib's image of a modest and upstanding figure may not be entirely accurate. Throughout my research for this video, I've learned more about Khabib's own tax indiscretions, as well as his dubious ties to religious radicalists and financial fraudsters. And when I take into account Khabib's current tax embezzlement scandal, along with his relationships with confirmed and suspected terrorists, and his close personal relationship with an oligarch who's imprisoned for committing tax fraud in a situation that feels very similar to what Khabib is accused of doing, this all paints a troubling picture of Khabib and his connections, indicating that perhaps his public persona might be masking a much darker reality. And look, in all fairness, individually, I wouldn't say that any of these cases are immediate red flags when observed independent of one another. But when you combine all of these pieces together, Khabib's alleged tax fraud, his long-standing relationship with Ziavutin Nurmagomedov and his numerous ties with suspected terrorists, it admittedly makes me curious of what dealings and relationships that Khabib has that we don't know about. If these are the things that we do know that Khabib is getting into, I wonder if there may be other nefarious aspects of his life that we don't know about yet. Prior to me conducting research for this video, I was always of the notion that even though me and Khabib probably wouldn't see eye to eye on several different topics regarding life and society, he was at the very least a principled man who knew the difference between right and wrong or good and bad. However, after learning more about Khabib's financial indiscretions as well as his ties to criminals, outlaws, and fugitives alike, I'm not sure what to make of Khabib's moral fiber anymore. Of course, no one in this world is perfect, nor do I expect Khabib to be, but I do think that it is fair to speculate on how much of Khabib's modest and honest image is genuine or just for show.
It's crazy.
Again, I don't expect anyone to be perfect, much less professional fighters. However, I gotta say that Khabib does seem to be in a league of his own when it comes to this class of fighter. Tax embezzlement allegations, ties to terrorist or terrorist-linked individuals.
And they don't have to be on steroids. That's just,
individuals and friendships with oligarchs who've been in prison for tax embezzlement. Like, say what you will about John Jones, but even
he's also on steroids.
He doesn't have these sorts of blemishes regarding his character and his background. And for all of his faults, at least it seems like Conor McGregor pays his taxes. And despite Conor frequently discussing these issues and numerous news sources in Russia highlighting them, the suspicious activities surrounding Khabib still remain underexplored and
because it came off like Conor was being a hater. And now it's like Conor was just telling the truth the whole time. These niggas have terrorist ties. Funded terrorist organizations. Motherfuckers shot up Jewish churches, Christian church. Like, wow, this is crazy.
and under-discussed amongst MMA fans. So here's where I turn the conversation